it's interesting because I think being able to make comparisons across the different workforce delivery models is almost like the holy grail, really, isn't it?
It's hard, right? Because, I mean, like we were just talking about, most of your services procurement, they just say, all right, I need this outcome. They don't worry about what's in, kind of underneath it. And I don't disagree with you. We are moving more to outcome based from a services procurement delivery, but I also feel like there's kind of an aspect of total cost of ownership that's coming into it, right? And if you don't understand like the should cost of what those resources are doing to make that widget, you can't really say, all right, well, I should have a full-time employee doing this, or I should have someone from staff aug do this, right? You can't really do that analysis very effectively if you don't know that I had 5 resources tied to this, working on this deliverable.
Yeah, and I think, it also highlights the fact that, you've got some finance in your background and you've got that analytical side to your background. And it's like, you know, it's not necessarily like you say, every statement of work is going to be different, and there's IP tied up in it, there's liability tied up in it. So it's more than just the hours that the
Right.
people and their time that they're putting into it. But why not try and put some numbers around it? Why not try and do some calculations? Because it's all just we'll come on to the business case side of it later, but it's all just part of how that business should be running the way it does work. So I think, it absolutely makes sense where people have this stuff organized and they can see it, they can start to apply some logic to it to say, well, if we do that this way, it's going to cost us this as a lump sum for delivery. If we did it via staff org, we reckon it's going to take this many people, this many weeks, or whatever it might be. You can start making some comparisons and assumptions around it, which is, this is the world is driven by data. But the fact that you had the data on that, you had that information, and you had the clarity and the visibility on those engagements allowed you to start playing around with the numbers on that. So I think although it's not an exact science and it is about outputs and outcomes, you can definitely apply some financial logic to it to try and drill into it a bit more effectively, which for a lot of firms would be a huge leap forward for them.
Well, absolutely, right. And then even just outside of the financial aspect of it, you think about kind of the risk aspect, right? Who has access to your buildings? Who's coming in, right? And if you don't have those resources, if you're not tracking them in system, we've got 5 visitor badges we issued today. Well, to whom? Is there really an easy way to track that versus, all right, well, we know, these 10 resources from Accenture are working on this project through the end of the year, or, through June, we know those 10 resources are coming in. They have access. So it's broader, right? It was twofold, right? It was getting access to the data, the types of roles, so we have more information, but then also managing the people themselves of knowing who's in our building. Right? Like if you think of, all right, well, if there's an emergency, we've got to make sure we can get everybody out. Well, who badged in today? Well, if there is a random visitor badge that we aren't aware of and no contact to it, we've got to figure out now that we've got how to get those folks out and how to find them. So
Cyber security as well, such a huge
yeah,
area, the whole kind of infosec, who's got access to the systems, access to the building, etc. It's massively important. Um, and you and I have both been in situations where you're listening to a very senior C-suite board member of an organization being very shocked because they've asked somebody, chief procurement officer, or head of contingent workforce, or head of HR, whoever it might be, head of talent acquisition, how many people have we got badging into our business? How many people have we got on our systems who are not employees? We think it's 5,000, but hang on, how come you're telling me it's 25,000? So, it happens all the time, doesn't it?
well, it's kind of an invisible workforce, right? And I mean, I saw one stat that said roughly 60% of an organization is not full-time employees, right? Or the spend, right? Of kind of the spend that they're doing is on third-party resources that aren't your own employee. And if you look at some of the stuff that SIA has put out, they estimate roughly 20% of your actual workforce, 21% of your actual workforce is not a full-time employee. And of that 21%, I think you and I were talking about this, 2 to 3% of that makeup is really your staff aug and your ICs, your independent contractors, right? And the rest of that is your services procurement, your workforce. And if you're trying to track your total workforce and you're not running that services procurement through vendor management system, or I mean, like typically you'll have it going through Oracle, so you'll have access, or Oracle or whatever your pay system is, so you have access to kind of spend data, but you don't have anything granular. You don't know what the actual people coming in and out of your office are, or who has access to what. So it's a larger chunk than I feel like people recognize.
Yeah, I feel like it's sort of it slips through the cracks a little bit as well because it's like a diffusion of responsibility where if you take services procurement broadly, some of it's going to be in a bit of a grey area that kind of, does it sit under HR, talent acquisition, contingent workforce? Right through to big IT outsourced projects that absolutely sit under procurement. So what I have definitely observed in the market is that the something that's really starting to grow now is the idea that someone needs to take ownership of services procurement as a channel. And it's a super important channel that is not visible effectively for a lot of companies, and it's not well managed for the vast majority of companies.